situation like that again. Everything you do is because I paid for it.
You have a maddening way. I don't know what cause you have to resent me. I'm not finished.
You're telling me how to conduct my affairs?
It's really just an excuse to focus my mind on an idea and find out about what's around me.
I do it because I love it, and I work at it, and it's always like seeing it for the first time. I love it.
My joy was really the moment of shooting the picture.
There's a lot of blind artists out there, but blind artists moving into a visual art field is a new thing. We're cutting a new path.
Your eye is that lock that's requires the key to get into to make photography. That's where it all starts. That's the little passageway through which all of that visual stuff has to go to get into your brain and to be made into a picture.
You could tell someone to put the lights in a certain place, but you have to look at it. So I don't see how one can be a blind photographer. It amazes me, actually.
I don't know how a non-sighted person could perceive light. Perhaps there is a way to perceive light. I just don't know what it would be.
Sight Unseen is the first major museum show in the world of the most accomplished blind photographers in the world. And I've spent the better part of a decade slowly tracking them down across the world, India, Tel Aviv, Europe, Americas, and narrowing it down to the most accomplished blind photographers in the world. Most people think that photographers operate through sight and their eyes, but photographers know that they actually operate through their mind. And these photographers, since they have no sight, are making purely mental constructions of these photographs. They use cameras and other technology, scanners, to bring a version of that mental image into the world for us to see. They're really thinking about, what is sight? What is vision? What's the difference? How do I link the visible world with the invisible world that I live in?
Find left. Find it. I lost my vision to something called retinitis pigmentosa, RP.
Pete Eckert is one of the really purest photographers because he builds his photographs carefully, piece by piece, purely as a mental construction first. And then eventually, sometimes it takes months until he has a full vision in his head, and then eventually he will, as he says, slip a photograph under the door from his world of darkness into our sighted world.
We're facing north, so I know what type of light is coming down this way. And so I took a light meter reading outside with this altered Braille light meter, and then I'm comparing it to right up against the windows, a few feet back, and I'm working my way into the building so I can have a frame of reference. And so I'm using a known against an unknown. And since I can't read numbers on this thing, I've just put Braille dots on there to figure it out. Okay, say something, Amy.
Something.
About the time I was going to go to graduate school, I had targeted Yale, and I was very excited about going there. I started losing my vision. Stand up. Turn as if you're going to the door. RP is very traumatic, at least it was for me, and you lose your vision in stages. So the first 9 months, I lost about half my vision. Think of a camera aperture closing down from the outside, coming down to a tiny tunnel of vision, and then fogging out to nothing, and then over a few years, going black. And opening up the shutter now. I had the luxury of about 10 years of pretty good central vision. And I used that to get some good martial arts training and get an MBA. My two fears were how to make money and how to protect myself, because I had no idea what it was going to be like to be blind. Turn to me. And that's it. There we go.
I was born in New Orleans in the only black hospital actually in the South at that time. I had infantile glaucoma, which was rare. And by the time the doctors realized what I had, it was too late to do much about it. They had to enucleate both eyes.
Henry Butler is an artist. You know, here's a very, very, very accomplished artist on a world level in music. And he's taking the same sensibility and applying it to photography.
When I was 4, I remember as I was in a kindergarten, the lady used to play piano. I remember really loving what I was hearing. And when I was 6, I used to play a neighbor's piano, and she always used to say, "My, you have great ears." And every time she'd say that, I'd kind of touch my ears and wonder what that meant, you know. Beethoven did lose his hearing, and he wrote music after he lost his hearing, but he also used a stick and he put it in his mouth, and he could feel the vibrations coming from a piano or the instrument. So he always had contact with the vibrations, and let's face it, everything is just vibrations. That's why I can enjoy photography just as much as any master photographer.
My entire life has been a challenge trying to compete in your world, in the sighted world.
Bruce Hall has shot underwater photographs for 25 years, and part of it is to reclaim sections of the world that he was denied. His comment to me is, the only time I feel completely comfortable is actually underwater. So he'll not only go diving, a blind person diving, but go diving at night because it doesn't make any difference to him. Part of his shooting underwater is that he is comfortable, and therefore they have kind of an ethereal quality. They feel almost like paradise, many of these photographs. And they could come out of the pages of National Geographic. But in reality, he's shooting them so that eventually, on land, he can see what it was that was right in front of him.
Basically, I was born with an optic nerve that never fully developed. So the connection between my eyes to my brain, I don't get the information that you would get or someone with normal sight. I had doctors tell me that if I had your eyesight, I couldn't get out of the house. But because you've grown up with it, you've adapted. You use the 5% of normal eyesight that you have better than anyone they've seen. And it's like, what choice do you have? You're a little kid, you go out and play and you figure it out. The thing that's important to me for people to understand is how hard I work to do what I do. I was born this way. I've never been able to drive a car. I can barely read without magnification. In fact, a lot of things I do now, I use a screen reader. I use cameras to see. You know, just like any photographer uses optics to see, I have to use them. I need them.
Bruce Hall has an amazing, relatively new project where he is shooting his 2 twin sons who are autistic. What's really interesting to me is that those images combined kind of 2 levels of chaos and disorder. They combine a photographer who can't see shooting a subject that is essentially out of control. His sons are wonderful, but they don't talk to you. You can't say stop and smile. They are in continuous motion. So this is photography that is sort of like American street photography, aims at capturing fast-moving collisions that are out of control. And they end up capturing something about autism itself.
My twin sons, Jack and James, are profoundly autistic and have no speech. Functional life skills are very, very low. The photography helps me, I don't know, it's almost therapy. It helps me understand, accept, deal with, you know, the loss. I mean, as a father, it's like, this is the last thing in the world you ever expect to be told, that, you know, your boys basically have no future as a typical child. The water, many autistic people love the water. I don't know the answer. They can't tell me. I have a list of questions to ask if either one of them ever speaks, which, you know, is doubtful at this point. I literally have 10,000 photos, and I'm narrowing down into, you know, what's meaningful to me. It will be a lifelong project.
You know, my great fear is to be blind. And so I try to avoid imagining myself as being blind.
What I do involves me looking at things and waiting for the right moment. I can't imagine how I could take pictures if I were blind.
The sensory input that you get from reality, sounds and vibrations, and instinct, you can't get from a piece of paper. So how do you translate what you do with the camera to the results? How do you know what you did? That's what I can't grasp. I could imagine making a picture if I couldn't see, but then how would I know what the picture actually is?
I was dating a woman. We would go to a lot of exhibits, the two of us and friends, and they would take turns sort of explaining to me what things looked like. You know, paintings, sculptures, photos. And then one day I just said, well, you know, these guys are wonderful. I'm really getting a lot out of this intellectually, but I need more.
I was living in Laguna Beach and I started beach diving. And I had a little studio apartment a couple blocks from Shaw's Cove, which is a popular dive spot. The things I saw underwater, I would try to describe to people, and it just, I couldn't really get it across. So I thought, I'm going to learn to take pictures.
I announced to everybody that I think the best thing for me to do is become a photographer.
I found an old camera in a drawer that my mother-in-law had left to us, and it had an infrared setting on it. And I have a corny sense of humor, so a blind guy doing photography in a non-visible wavelength, that just cracked me up.
I got a little disc camera in a plastic housing, and the 1,000 pictures I took, 999 of them were awful. And then I got my first good underwater, for me, my first good underwater photo. And that was the day I knew I'm going to get serious about this.
And right from the first contact sheet, when I started to show it to people, I was getting good response.
When I told them that I was about to take their picture, you know, they'd laugh and, oh, come on, man, you know, you must be bullshitting me, you know, you must be. And then They'd see the camera, and they'd love it. You know, they'd pose. They'd be very jovial about it.
You know, art isn't a hobby. It's an obsession. It's something I have to do.
I know that in the visual world that I live in, I can't imagine not having access to all that visual richness that I see every day. But I suppose it's possible that if I were blind, in a way I might see things differently than a sighted person would.
See, there's also a feel to the camera too that is, the camera takes on something personal too with you, that you're able to relate through it. I always, when I get a new camera, I always, like, I'm watching TV in bed, I sit in bed playing with the camera, so I've become sensitive to this piece of equipment, so it's not something I don't know. I know the camera. And I think if you were blind, you would know it a lot more.
There's no limit to what the camera can do without the photographer, and I'm a photographer saying that. Cameras are very good. But I guess there also are senses that you can bring to the automatic quality of the camera, so that even if you don't see, and particularly if you have had sight and have been a photographer, you know, you have a sense of what's going on, and that kind of guidance will give a direction to the camera itself and very possibly come out with consistent and meaningful work.
I got into blind photography because I'm interested in chance running photography. What I didn't realize at the time is that these photographers don't operate by chance. I thought blind photography would be the chanciest, most kind of out of control photography. In reality, these people are artists at a deep level. They use chance. There is a lot of chance in the work because they can't see, but in essence, they have huge amounts of control over these beautiful photographs that they make. They just come from a different place, from a non-visual place, from a non-sighted place, instead from inside their head, the purest place to be.
I don't do straight-ahead photography. I can. Why should I try to show the sighted world? I'm no longer a part of the sighted world. The world I'm trying to depict and the world that I belong to now is the world of the blind. Okay, I'm just checking all my settings because earlier today we were working with a zone plate. Painting with light, think of a camera set open so the shutter's open and in a completely dark room. So you have all the time in the world to add light. And so whatever you add, the camera as a recording device, lays layers of light together. So adding the layers of light, I build up images. Okay, so the first pose I'd like you to do, excuse me, okay. Bat you right in the head. Remember we were working on a couple of different poses. You're pretty much square on right now. I want you to be at a little bit of an angle. The images that I developed, I was using reflected light and outlining some of the woman's parts and illuminating some of the woman with a small flashlight. Okay, let's light off.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Opening up the shutter now. Think of the light as a paintbrush, so you're actually layering on light where you want it to be. So you decide by the way I was doing it, I would listen to the woman sometimes if I got a little misplaced. If sound wasn't doing it well enough for me, my own voice, like a bat, bounces off the object so I can get an idea of her silhouette by, think of a rock in a river. The sound wraps around her. So if there's a sound behind her, it wraps around her and comes to me. Okay, so here comes the light. Don't wince, please. Okay, that's it. Okay, relax. I'm going to bring my camera up. Let's see. I'm going to be moving the camera one tripod leg up here and in like this. And so I'll be catching you from about here up. Okay. I take the photo, I conceive the photo, I work with the camera, I develop the film, I make contact prints. That's all in the event. I have total control over that. I don't involve sighted people with it. And in some ways, I think if I did involve sighted people in that side, it would taint the image. It's not from the blind world. This isn't a collaboration. I'm trying to show my perspective of the world. It has nothing to do with the sighted perspective.
I moved into this house in about late 2000. It was a great house for entertaining and work and recording, all that good stuff. In 2005, about August the 29th, Hurricane Katrina came and the levees broke. About 6 feet of water got into the house. Everything on the first floor was devastated. Everything was destroyed, including my piano and all of my recording equipment, all of my clothing, and just everything. When I first saw the piano, I was just heartbroken. I really felt like I'd lost a member of my family. I felt like I lost something that allowed me to share music with the world for 20 years. Andrea has been an assistant of mine on a lot of projects. When I'm with Andrea, I'm asking questions about the scenery. First, I want to know about the general scenery. What kind of dog is it?
Big white bulldog.
Oh, really?
Okay, good. Yeah, no, just... Yeah.
I want to know the color scheme, what nature is surrounding the objects that we may be looking at. I want to know about distance. I want to know about the sun, if we're outside. All those things are important to me, all that.
On a bench with a lady who's sitting next to him.
Uh-huh.
And he has tattoos, a bicycle, a stick.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's good. Yeah, I like that.
So let's go.
Yeah. It's a blind man taking your picture. Since I'm not looking at the particular subject that I'm shooting, I want to know everything I need to know to get the right frame, to get the right composition. You do tarot readings, huh? Do you mind if I do this? Hmm? Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Where are you from?
Born in New York City, down here just 92.
I photograph a lot of people. I love people because they're more challenging. They have different expressions that sometimes you can feel. So what about your hair, man?
I got tired of gray back in 1986.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I enjoy the improvisation part of photography, just like I enjoy the improvisation part of music. Where y'all from?
New Orleans.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
They work in the cabana.
Oh, really? Beautiful. All right. People can be fun, especially kids. I love shooting kids, and because they're not inhibited about anything most of the time. You want to see it?
Cool.
Oh, you like that?
I photograph what works for me. Macro tends to be something I love to do. I have a light meter with a really big display, an underwater light meter, and I was able to start making good photographs. The camera that I use underwater is a digital Nikon camera. There are buttons and knobs. Everything is very tactile, and I literally memorize. There are probably 25 controls on the outside of the housing, and I memorize every single one of them. I have to. I do have a magnifier, and if there's something I really need to look at, I can get the magnifier out and get on top of it and see it. But it gets in the way of paying attention to what's going on around me. And then the diving is a whole nother aspect of this that you have to have down to a point where you can forget about it, and that's not easy to do. There are 100 fabulous underwater photographers that I can't compete with because of my eyesight. I never use the word vision. But it sort of takes me in different directions. I look for things. I'm always the guy with my face, as my friends say, your face is glued to the reef. They're off swimming around looking for big things. I'm getting up real close and looking for the tiny things that are out of reach. I see a color, I see a shape. I see this tiny little thing. I want to see this. Take a macro shot, a 1-to-1 or larger. Come home, blow it up, and it's like, wow. When I get home, it's always like seeing it for the first time. It's always a surprise. I love it. It's seeing twice.
They operate against long odds to make these photographs. The only reason they persevere in making these photographs, images that they will never see in conditions where they could get hit by a bus, Bruce Hall could get eaten by a shark, is because they never stop. These are highly determined individuals, every single one of them.
Well, this first image I'm looking at would be a good picture for a sighted photographer.
You know, this could be in anybody's portfolio.
It's not all about how I visualize or how I see with eyes, with physical eyes, but how I feel the energy as it is going back and forth.
I find, these photographs are quite extraordinary.
Why I take photos is it replaces my vision. I'm learning to see again.
And also, he's graphically very good. Well, he has a lovely eye.
Yeah, every time I do something that I haven't done, every time I find something, a subject that I haven't taken, it's fun for me.
The world's a good place. It's all in how you view it. And if you're positive, there's a lot of sweetness to life. And so my fears about going blind and the struggle was just an immense burden. But that fact of being blind, life is still good.
So the joy in actually seeing the result, and when it works, either in a large print or on a large computer monitor, and being able to see the detail, it's sheer joy. It allows me to see the world, and it's beyond happiness. I'm obsessed by it.
It's great.
Talking my head now, and now I go one day. Talking my feel one day. Talking my feel one day. you spun boy? Fire. My spun boy, do you spun boy? Wanna set his flag on fire. Talking about him now. I go in there. Talk about feeling there. Talk about feeling there. Talking about him now, I go one day. Talk about filo one day. Talk about filo one day.
I've got the best team in television.
I understand the way this game is played.
Did the president call? The voice of my generation.
Senhoras e senhores, com vocês, Helena de Freitas.
Só deviam pagar os que deram a alma por essa camisa. Não a pernas de pau assalariados. Se quiser ser campeão, tem que saber que treino é jogo, e jogo é vida.
Helena, é forte suspeita de que pode ser sífilis. Você precisa se cuidar.
Então avisa ele que eu não sou jogador de futebol. Eu sou jogador do Botafogo.
Apreciando a paisagem?
O que é que ainda te falta nesta vida?
Nada.
Ele tem um sonho.
Qual é o teu maior sonho da sua carreira?
De que um dia todos gritem o seu nome. E não da sua mãe. A HBO apresenta com exclusividade FDP, a série que lança um novo olhar sobre o esporte mais apaixonante do mundo. Afinal, nesse jogo, quem torce pelo juiz?
Ai, não! Ele tem que calar!
Modelo! Os premiados escritores José Roberto Toreiro e Marcos Pimenta assinam os roteiros da série e usaram todo o seu conhecimento dos bastidores do futebol para criar o universo de FDP.
A gente tem tudo muito fixado no inconsciente, esse bailado que eles fazem, né, dentro do gramado.
Eles faziam aquecimento antes de entrar em campo, correndo. E tem uns que fazem isso no campo para aparecer mesmo, sabe? Você já vê a vaidade do cara transbordando ali. E eles fazem pelo centro, sabe?
Com 13 episódios e direção geral de Adriano Tivita, FDP conta ainda com um time de 3 grandes diretores: Caíto Ortiz, Kátia Lund e Johnny Araújo.
É aquela catada que você quer mais é xingar o juiz erra sempre contra você. O juiz é um personagem folclórico sensacional.
E é pênalti!
E aí quando você começa a fazer uma mini pesquisa sobre o universo, aí é que realmente a gente tinha certeza que valia muito a pena fazer a série.
Está expulso. Grande juiz.